Right, here we are in the machine shop. Laurie here is boring out an Isle of Man axle box. So these are for Isle of Man plate frame carriage bogies that we have a contract to overhaul, including fitting of new wheel sets and roller bearing axle boxes. So this process is boring out the diameter of the axle box to take the roller bearing. So we've got the slots in the side, which is where the axle box slides up and down in the horns. A pocket here that takes where the leaf spring presses down, and the bore, which is what's being machined just at the moment. Okay, so here we have 4 bogies from the Isle of Man. So they're from the Isle of Man steam railway carriages. They send us a repeat contract to overhaul these every year or so. What we do is basically install new roller bearing wheel sets. You saw the axle boxes earlier. Complete new wheel sets with roller bearings, and we install brakes because the carriages were built unbraked, and now they're fitting all the carriages up with vacuum brakes, but the brake gear needs to be fitted to the bogies. So we buy steel profiles with all the brake stretchers and the brake rigging within the bogies. Anyway, these are just as they've come from the island. We'll shot blast them and inspect the frames for any cracking around the corners. Maybe do some weld repairs if there's corrosion. Then we'll fit the brake gear. We'll cut access windows so that the brake gear can be fitted about here in all the bogies, and then they'll be basically assembled with all new pins, bushes, new safety chains, these things here. So they'll be basically as good as new bogies, and then they'll be returned to the island. Okay, so these are the pony truck wheels for the Yo or the X Linton Barnstaple 262 tanks. We're machining some parts as an outside contract. So here we've got the new truck axles machined, and we've got the wheels which have been machined. So the next step is to press these together. This is the area that the wheel will go on. So these have been machined ready with a few thou of interference between the diameter, the bore of the wheel, and the axle. So they'll be pressed together on the wheel press outside. Okay, so here's a set for the other loco that we assembled earlier. So these have been pressed together on the press outside. You can see in here the nice radius corner that is inside the wheel, which ensures that it shouldn't be prone to any cracking of the axles. This is where the axle boxes will sit, and the springs will be pressing down on the front and rear trucks. So these are newly machined cylinder covers for, again, the Yo and the X Linton Barnstaple 262 locomotives that are starting to be be built. So we're machining quite a lot of the components here. We've got the cylinder castings, the truck wheels we've seen. These are the covers for the cylinders that have been part machined on this lathe here. So we're constantly trying to update the machines in the machine shop. This lathe has come recently, second hand, and it's just being commissioned at the moment. It's Dean Smith and Grace, which machinists tell me is the best type of lathe for the sort of work we do. We don't have any computer controlled machines because we don't do big batches of things. If we want batches of parts machined, then we tend to get them from local companies in the area that have CNC machining capability. Yep. This is the Pixie locomotive. It's a Bagnall saddle tank loco that it was famous for being at Teddy Boston's Cadeby Light Railway, basically in his rectory garden. So it's now being restored as an outside contract for a private customer. We haven't done the boiler work. The boiler has come to us as you see it, but we've done an awful lot of work on the chassis. It's been straightened up, it's been shot blasted, weld repaired, the wheel sets have been assembled in, the axle boxes have been machined and sorted out, and all the valve gear and motion has been now completed and all painted up rather nicely, as you can see. So at the moment we're just working on completing the boiler installation, and then we'll be receiving the tank from the customer, a new tank that he's having built somewhere else. And then we'll be on to pipe work and completing the loco. But it's a little way off yet. But maybe later this year we'll might see it in action. Right, this is the pair of bogies from observation carriage number 11. They're original spooner pattern bogies. So very old, plain bearing bogies. So you've got a big axle box which has a bronze bearing inside that slides up and down in these horn guides here. I say the frames are original spooner bogies, so they date from the 1870s, 1880s, something like that. They've been repaired many times, but at the moment it's having an overhaul. It needs an overhaul because of the mileage that it's done, the carriage has done over the last couple of years, running on the Woodland Wanderer trains that they run to Tannable from Porthmadog, and they've been very, very popular in COVID times. So the carriage has done a lot more miles than it would be normally expected to do as a heritage carriage. Anyway, we're overhauling this now. We're having some new secondary suspension fitted to replace the 1960s modification that was done. We've got an improved design. The wheels have been refurbished, they've been remachined. This is one of the bearings that sits inside the axle box. You can see it's a white metal bearing, and it's got oil distribution grooves off the centre, which isn't ideal, but they work. The oil flows down the two holes. This bit rocks inside the axle box to accommodate the twist of the bogie. So if I put this on the journal where it runs, so you can see it's quite a nice fit on the journal. It's machined to a few thousandths of an inch greater diameter than the journal itself, so that hopefully a wedge of oil forms under the bearing. And then, as I say, this will sit in an axle box. This is the blanch. It's coming to be retubed because the boiler tubes had started to leak. We'd had some strange pitting of the boiler tubes at the end of last year. Anyway, we've decided to bring it in and retube it quickly to get it to be able to be a standby loco for this year. So the new tubes are all stacked up there. The tube ends have been heated to soften them, and then they're cooling slowly in the box there. So at the moment the tube plate is having the holes reamed, which is a small amount of material taken out of them to basically clean and smooth the hole. Here's the Mae'r Emrys. It's almost ready to start running trains at the beginning of this operating season. It just needs the ash pans replacing because they've had a bit of straightening work, and then it will have a steam test from the witnessed by the boiler inspector, and then it'll be ready for traffic. The other double fairly, the David Lloyd George, the boiler's still away at Israel Newton's, being retubed and having a complete restay of the fireboxes. Although that is advancing very well there, and should be back with us this month, and then a few weeks to reassemble the loco. And the David Lloyd George will be good for traffic this coming season as well. So obviously the Mae'r is much more advanced at the moment. So that's double engines sorted for the FR for most of this season. Here's the Ffestiniog. It's back in the works at the moment, having some extra engine attention. Developed a little bit of a problem having gone into engineering work traffic. So it's back again for some minor attention to the engine, but hopefully it'll be out again shortly. Right, here's James Spooner. We're at a stage where lots of components have been made and trial fitted, and now we're just taking the loco apart again. In the tanks and cab are coming off in order to do some work behind the tanks, some piping there, and then the tanks and cab will be painted, well, shot blasted and then painted off the loco because it gives a much better result. And all the components are stacked up down here. Copper pipes, There's a steam brake and the ejector, the release trigger, whistles and pieces, and then some steel bits from the cab and the rest of the loco, which again, say these bits will get shot blasted and painted. This is the new boiler for Beiriannydd. As you can see, it's coming together. The tube plate's been bolted on in place, and the longitudinal stays are all in. Main steam pipe is fitted. We've got the front of the stainless steel smoke box is appearing. The firebox for the loco is yet to be fitted, but I don't think that's far away now. You can see the girder bars here. Some loco boilers have direct stays from the inner to the outer firebox, but this has these separate girders, so basically these girders are stiffening the top of the box to stop it collapsing down under the steam pressure. The sides of the firebox will be supported by lots of stays to the outer box. This firebox is what we call a flanged box, because it's got this curve all around the sides, which that improves the water circulation around the firebox. So traditionally this joint would have been a riveted joint, so one plate would have been lapped over the other here, but with modern welding we can just make a nice smooth butt joint. So it simplifies the construction, but we've still got the advantage of the flanged plates. So if you have a look here, you can see that the tube holes have been drilled, including into the top curve here, which might look unusual, but it's the only way you can get the right number of tubes in whilst having the flanged plates. Obviously a disadvantage of flanging is that you can't take your tube right into the corner, because you'd never get it to, you could never expand it into position properly, you'd never get it to seal. So we've got some inner fireboxes that are square cornered, welded, so instead of having this curve here, you've just got two plates coming together and then it's welded at the corner. But flanged is more work to achieve, but it's considered a better job. Other internal parts of the boiler are now fitted. The regulator valves in there, stays, long stays are in there, so the firebox can go in, I say, probably fairly soon. So these things here are moulds to cast brick arches. The brick arches go in the loco's fireboxes to make the path for the flames to the tubes longer. So they're cast in not ordinary cement, but special refractory cement, which is high temperature resisting cement. So each loco usually has its own set of arch moulds, because you know, all the fireboxes are different size and shapes, so each arch has to be individually designed and then a mould made. So this mould is made of timber and steel. It's been prepared by being oiled, which will allow the finished arch to come out more easily and not tear the timber away. So the cement will be mixed up in the mixer there, and then poured in here and filled up to the top. It'll be compacted very well in the corners, because You don't want any air bubbles which could cause the mould to be, cause the arch to start to crack, and left to set for some time, and then the mould can be dismantled with these bolts, so that the sides will come off and the ends will come off, so that the blocks can be taken out. And the blocks then have to be dried some more for as long as possible, because if there's any moisture within the block, when you first light the fire, you can generate steam within the block which will blow it apart. So you have to be very careful with the finished blocks, and we generally, having dried them for some time, fit them and then have a small warming fire to continue to dry the blocks out slowly before we put a full-blown fire in. So yes, it's not often seen, but it's an important task. Okay, here's the lid, which is just awaiting a steam test, and it'll be ready to start hauling trains at the beginning of the season. Should be used quite a bit this year. It's in relatively good condition, having had its overhaul 2 years ago now. Yeah. So, as I say, we've got the 2 Garretts, 87 and 143, ready to go back into traffic at Dinas to all the Welsh Highland trains, and 130 won't be far behind. That's just having some paintwork attention to the boiler section, which had started to get some corrosion on the boiler cladding sheets. Anyway, that's all been shot blasted, repainted. So we'll have 3 Garretts in service for the main running season. I say we'll have the 2 Fairleys on the Ffestiniog, with the lid and the Welsh pony. We'll have Blanche in as a standby engine, although probably will get used some of the time. And then say we'll have the David Lloyd George ready in perhaps a month or 2, and with the Mae'r Emrys, we should be able to cover all the trains we're planning to run this year. Here is the Linda. Linda's been stored over here for a couple of weeks while we retube the Blanche, and then Linda will be going back into the works probably at the same time as the DLG is being reassembled, but which one will be first back together I don't know, we'll have to see. But we've done a lot of work on the Linda over the winter. The chassis has had a full overhaul, the motion's been overhauled. Obviously the boiler was done earlier. It's looking a bit strange here at the moment. This is wax oil that's been sprayed onto the rods to stop the rods going rusty whilst it's in the old loco shed, which is obviously not a heated building. And so anyway, the work's been paused on the Linda just at the moment, but should be ready for certainly the high summer season. We've got some work to do on the tender. We need to build a new water tank and coal bunker in the tender. That's yet to be done. We've got various bits of piping and finishing off on the loco, but it's not a million miles away from being done. So, as I say, certainly for the high summer, the Linda should be out in traffic again.